Okay, short introduction of me.
For your name.
My name is Jürgen Höbert. I've been crypto since 2014. I was before in the traditional startup industry. Basically shifted to crypto full-time
Brazilians in the studio. And
2 years ago, like 2.5 years ago. What do we do in crypto? A little bit of everything and nothing, let's say this way. Because if you were in Germany in 2014, you were lucky, you just had not much to invest in terms of possibilities because there were much tokens. But all of them basically go up, so I found this presentation which was very interesting because yes, I was trying to trade, but most of the time I was just a holder. Just hold, you believe in it, you see it just like a normal investment. I have two companies. One is Tokenization Limited, which is basically consulting and advising on everything which has to do with tokenization. Maybe some of you had here to talk before, where I was talking about the world that's tokenized. That's what I'm basically interested, not so much in the financial aspect. And then out of accident I had ICO investment fund, where we were investing in projects. We do it a little bit different. So it's a bunch of guys which give their idea where to invest, and other people basically get the information and they can follow. We personally don't like that we manage other people's money, because I don't want to be responsible if a bear market comes and someone is knocking at my door what I did with their money, let's say this way. Okay, today we would all like to talk about things, how they are used, because everyone is always talking about the financial aspect, but where can you use blockchain? And for example, one of the most interesting ones that I count is like supply chain. And why supply chain? Because there are a lot of things where you want to know where your goods, where things coming from, how they have been transported, how they have been treated. Like, are the diamonds having a problem because they're coming out of the wrong mines? Did they get swapped out and stuff like this? Theoretically, there are a lot of technical solutions already, and I have to warn you, most likely the problem is not that there's an error in the technical solution, most likely it's the problem where humans are involved. Assuming you do a project in blockchain which is a supply chain about organic food, the problem is the first point of entry. So yeah, you're on the field, they package it, and if the person puts in the wrong carrot, which is not coming from an organic field, it's basically labeled as being organic, but it's not organic, because along the supply chain there are not additional control points. There are some companies, one is out of Slovenia. Very interesting area there because they are very heavily involved in blockchain, and it's called a registry trail, and they have basically a working product. They do it for a small local brand, which is they basically trade, they track from the source, from the farm until in the shop, so you can go there. You have a very simple app, you scan it. It has nothing to do with tokens, it has nothing to do with blockchain for the user side. Everything is just in the background. Like, every one of you is basically sending emails, but you're not really need to understand how SMTP works or how this underlying technology works. That's basically where blockchain should be used for. Flight insurance, this is also a very interesting topic. Why? Because, you know, maybe some of you know Air Berlin, which is, was a large low-cost airline. And if you had flights delays, by European law, there are destined to pay you something back, but it was extremely hard to reach the support. So we basically were not able to do this. Then kind of, what is it called? AXA, yeah. AXA Insurance came up with a solution where they say, okay, you can make flight insurance through our service, and it's basically automatically in real time calculating the price. And you can also in real time, basically, if the flight goes wrong, it gets triggered that there was a delay, and the smart contract will automatically refund you, and everything is working on over credit cards. So it's not that you need to have Ethereum or Bitcoins to participate. It's only what they're using, the technology behind, to do all these things. These are basically working products. There's another company which is called Ethereum. They are basically a bunch of guys which are in Ethereum since, in cryptocurrency since 6 years or so. They are very idealistic approach to offer something like this is completely open source.
So if you want to set up your own flight insurance company, despite all the regulation and all these things, you can do this very easily with a few lines of codes. There's public code. You just need to make basically the front end, but the code which is written on the blockchain is commonly shared. It's 100% secure. You basically cannot rip anyone off. Gaming industry is also doing something where blockchain is heavily involved. I think afterwards there are other people who give more example on gaming industry. I just give a very simple one, which is called EOS Bet. It's very simple betting game. Let's say high or low. You say, okay, is the number higher than 50? You get basically paid out, like 50%. On the other side, if you lose, basically lose everything. What is here is everything is 100% documented on the blockchain. There is no fraud possible, and everything is happening in real time. So you basically, in this case, it's done with EOS, which is a different form of blockchain. You just click it, you can do it very easily. It's submitting the coins, the counting is going down, and then if you were right, you get double the money back. If you're wrong, you lose all the money. Very simple things. There are much more complicated things in the gaming industry, which is like full online casinos which are built on the blockchain, betting, virtual goods, and all these things, but it's a little bit too much to talk about this in an overview. Real estate. I live in Hong Kong, and one of the biggest topics there is financial instruments like security tokens, but also when it comes to real estate, it has to do with the history of Hong Kong. It's a very large area where real estate investment trusts are popular. I think it's the largest market where real estate investment trusts are set up, and there you can use it for different things. So in a very easy way, you could, like land registries. And at the moment, I had a very interesting discussion, like, when was it? 2 months ago. I'm originally from Austria, and I asked the Austrian government, so how is it? Is there a centralized land register in Austria? They said, technically not really. So I grew up on the countryside, so if I go to Vienna, which is the capital, and I would ask, can you tell me who owns this land plot? If I show it in Google Maps, he says, we have actually no idea. You need to go to the local government and ask them. So you need to imagine we are living in a world where things like this are technically very easy to solve, but they're not done. There are some other countries like Ghana or so, where they're basically somehow a little bit more advanced. Because they never had any of these ideas, so people were coming up and basically they're leapfrogging into new technologies. Healthcare is something where the technology is involved on different levels. So it's all about patients' informations, confidentiality, and also too about, generating your own currency. A very interesting project which came across was like DentaCoin. It's, in the beginning, if you were seeing it, it was completely ridiculous. So it's basically a separated cryptocurrency for everything which has to do with your teeth and dental stuff. It has to do a little bit how these things are outside of the European Union. In European Union, most of the countries have kind of a socialist system. So about healthcare, the government takes care about it. But for example, in some countries, it's like the government doesn't give you anything for healthcare, so you have to take care on your own. And somehow it got popular that a lot of people were using medical tourism. So if you're in the US and you need to fix your teeth, you maybe go over to Mexico. And then it's always a money transfer, and you want to send up front to some Mexican some money, which claims to be a dentist, can get a little bit crazy. But somehow this DentaCoin, they're actually really used, which I find surprising, but you see that they use, there are dentists who are signing up and stuff like this. Thank you very much. Every presentation is normally a Lambo, even if we're in a bear market, but that's kind of what it was all about, because you have to imagine, at the moment, if you talk about it's always very serious and about money, but we need to bring back a little bit of fun there as well, because that's where it originally started, because some people had fun with technology, and they come across something which was interesting. And in particular, I don't know if you guys know the founder of Ethereum, like Vitalik. I find it very sad how much pressure people put on this kid, which had a very great idea, but he didn't really understand how the world runs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jürgen. Our next speaker is Yael Tamar, who will talk about blockchain and logistics and supply chain. Welcome on the stage.
Hi everyone. My name is Yael Tamar and I'm the founder of Top of Blockchain. And today I'll be talking to you about the logistics industry. Logistics industry is a huge and complex industry of $10 trillion a year in 2 billion shipments. Along with that, it's also a very complex industry and inefficient industry. In fact, over 300 pages and 20 hands are required for change of custody of a product. There is a huge number of 900 man-years that are needed to push paper around, basically for administrative costs. Now, this industry is growing at a rate of 11% every year, but the industry cannot keep up with its own growth. Deloitte has identified 4 main challenges of the supply chain industry. Number 1 is transparency, or the lack of transparency. So players in the industry are not aware of what's happening along the supply chain. So you may have an issue or a challenge arising in the beginning, and the receiver of the package does not know about it until the very end. As we saw in the previous presentation, it creates challenges specifically for the supply chain of food products, for example, where from 1/3 to half of all food products in the world arrive spoiled or in a less than perfect condition. And that's partially the reason why tomatoes, for example, are so expensive. So number 2 is compliance. Compliance is a big issue in logistics because the goods are moving across country lines. So the governments are requiring a lot of paperwork to see that every supply chain movement and shipment is adhering to regulation. Challenge number 3 is flexibility. It again refers to the same challenge of transparency, where players around the road do not have the understanding of what's happening, so they're not flexible enough and they're not responsive enough to deal with the problem along the way. So even if we have the sensors, the IoT technology, to pinpoint different problems along the supply chain, we're not equipping the stakeholders to deal with those problems along the way. And the 4th problem is the stakeholder management. The fact that there's so much competition in this industry and players cannot get along together. And what is a supply chain? It's basically an ecosystem. And if the players in the ecosystem cannot get along, cannot play together, it's a big problem for the ecosystem overall. So in comes blockchain. And it helps solve basically all 4 of those issues: the transparency, compliance, flexibility, stakeholder management. It's basically this trustless ecosystem where everybody can plug in and receive the information they need, when they need, where they need it, settle and interoperate. And this is exactly why supply chain is a prime candidate as an industry for blockchain disruption and blockchain adoption. I'm here to talk to you about Holistics. Holistics is a decentralized, open source, standard protocol that enables all logistics partners to play together and communicate within the supply chain. It's creating the interoperability that this network has been lacking until this day. And the use case I'd like to highlight is the proof of concept conducted by Holistics in the last 3 months with one of the largest freight forwarding companies in the world. And what they did was parallel to the usual operation of this freight forwarder. They set up a blockchain platform. They basically provided this company with advanced API access where they were plugging in and getting real-time data on things like temperature and humidity. But the most important feature of this platform was the change of custody. So we're basically pushing a shipment through about 10 to 20 different hands in the supply chain with blockchain. So we're looking at paperless communication of these stakeholders along the supply chain. We're looking at saving 300 sheets of paper and 20 different hands along the way with this blockchain platform. Over the course of several months, there's been a 100% success rate. Hundreds of smart contracts were deployed. Over 6,000 changes of custody have been done, and over 1 million read-write transactions were recorded on the blockchain. So we're calling this proof of concept a great success. And what we've seen here as well is the ability, the flexibility of this specific freight forwarder to deal with any arising issues as they see fit, whenever they see a problem arising as triggered by the IoT sensors that they place in the cargo. So the most interesting feature about Holistics is not even the interoperability factor, which makes the system more efficient. But the most interesting part of all of this is the growth that's going to come out of this platform. Because this technology enables a marketplace. It enables a marketplace of IoT, technology companies, legal and accounting services, sales and operation, resellers, insurance, trade finance, you name it. You cannot imagine right now what could come out of this, the new business models in logistics and the new types of transactions that you'll be able to make, the efficiency that we'll be able to see in this industry. So I predict that with blockchain and with Holistics, the industry is going to be able to grow in size and grow much more efficiently than it does at the moment. Once again, my name is Yael Tamar, founder of Top of Blockchain. We help integrate blockchain in services for various companies at different stages, as well as help blockchain companies find their go-to-market strategy and reach their audiences. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I will not be speaking too much about the rocket science. This will be a very applicable one. So speaking about the gambling, right? As we are on Malta, which is also the gambling island, and we all know that on Malta there are a lot of casinos, and casinos, they have one main problem, right? Although the regulation is here, they still have problems with payments. Usually these problems are solvable, but they still have a lot of issues with opening bank accounts, and the fees for payments are quite high. So I will just quickly explain how blockchain and cryptos mostly solve this. So the main problem is that if you are operating worldwide, and it's not only about gambling, right? If you planning to build a digital product which you sell or you provide the services, and you plan to cover the whole world, this is just a short example of the payment methods that you might need for the different regions, let's say so, and the continents, right? This is just information from the internet. It might be not entirely true. So we all know like the basic names like Skrill, Neteller, and PayPal, and some specific ones which are used in Asia, for example, CUP, WeChat, Alipay, and for Africa they are pretty much unbanked, unfortunately. So in Africa it's used mostly with the phones, right? M-Pesa, let's say so. But through M-Pesa, for example, you still can buy cryptocurrencies in Africa. So together with the different range of the payment methods for gambling, the fees vary like I said, from 3 to 5, of course, some of them provided 1% and some of them reach ridiculous 7 to 8% if we speak about vouchers that you can buy in the shops offline, and of course there the fees become just ridiculous. And what crypto kind of allowed to do is provide just one language for all the continents. And anywhere in the world you can buy Bitcoin. Anywhere, with cash, with the account on your mobile phone, with the card, with the bank account, with Skrill, with Netel, whatever, right? You always can find in your region how to buy cryptocurrency. And what it means for the businesses who want to operate like worldwide is to integrate this one language. I mean, from my experience, right, I'm the head of crypto business at Qubits, and we are pretty strong in providing these services to gambling, to sports betting and casinos. And it really works, it really is. So it's simple as it is, not so many blockchain, but I will now explain how blockchain is also there. It's mostly about crypto as a payment method. Unfortunately, the pioneers in this industry was the BitPay, right? They mostly tried to onboard e-commerce. But e-commerce, they already have a good conditions from the acquirers, from cards, from PayPal, and whatsoever. And they usually operate within the country or within the set of the countries, which is pretty much limited. So they don't have this crazy problem with the payments, so they just don't need this crypto solution in general. So we went to the more risky industries but still regulated, like gambling. So what is the main advantage, right? It's cheaper, it's arguably fast, but there are solutions which still do it instantly. No risk, of course, as the industry is unregulated. The whole industry of the payments and cryptocurrency, of course, as a business you have risks because you operate a bit in the unregulated space when you start accepting cryptocurrency, but then it is in the end about risk management. It's international, right? I think that nobody would argue that you can use it everywhere in the world. And it is easy to integrate. You don't need to spin the whole node to do your own blockchain integration with Bitcoin, LTC, Ethereum, Nano, whatsoever. You integrate a simple API through any provider. There are, I mean, right now, there are probably dozens of them on the market who provide you a simple API to plug in your business. Thank you. That was quick. Just a small detail that I want to add, how blockchain plays here. There was a presentation I had on this event last year in December. That was about analytics, how you can use blockchain analytics to see how from where the payments are arriving. So in the gambling, the risk department can even see how risky are the coins which they receive. So this is where the blockchain also is the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. So guys, I have a great news. The great news is that beer is waiting for you. I am one of the investors of PicPack. The guys from PicPack, show your hands. Philip. So let's come to the beer. They don't believe me that we drink is all, so let's have fun. Please come to the beer.
I'm sorry, we will go to the after party after our last speaker, who is Arifa Khan, and now Joseph Borg is talking about blockchain in gaming.
Too fast.
Okay, I'm sure you prefer the beer than listening to me, so I'll make it very quick. Max spoke about the benefits for gaming companies when it comes to the use of cryptocurrencies. So I'm going to speak a bit more about the technology and the benefits that it will bring, the blockchain technology, and the benefits it will bring to the gaming industry itself, not just the use of cryptocurrencies. And unfortunately, I don't have a presentation to show you here, but I'll try, and well, that helps because I can make it maybe a bit quicker. But there are 4 main elements that bring benefits to the gaming industry when it comes to blockchain. And actually, I wouldn't say just benefits, they are going to disrupt the whole gaming system, positively, of course. And the first very important element is trust. So today, we rely on international independent labs to actually certify the random number generator. So how many of you don't know, well, how many of you know what is a random number generator? So basically, once if you have a lottery, if you have any form of game, the result is always generated by a random number generator. So ultimately, once you have this random number generator, this is the crux of the whole gaming operation. If the random number generator is not fair, if the random number generator does not instill the confidence, does not generate the numbers, the results fairly and randomly, then we have a problem. So today we rely on these independent labs that actually test the random number generator to confirm that it really is random and that it is not tampered with. So with blockchain, this can be verified directly by the players themselves over a period of time once the operation is live. So that is a big advantage. I'm not saying that gaming companies today are tampering with random number generators. It's not the case. Most companies today are highly regulated. They operate like the most highly regulated financial services providers. But the doubt in customers will always be there. So with blockchain, this doubt can be removed. So that's the first most important thing. Secondly, tied to payments. Today, if you want to play on a gaming website, you'll usually deposit 1,000 euros in cash via wire transfer or through some e-wallet like Neteller or Skrill, and you start playing from those 1,000 euros. With smart contracts and cryptocurrencies, we can do without that initial big deposit. But rather, you will play, you will just wager, you will just send the amount of money that you want to play in that particular game. And through the smart contracts, there is a guarantee that once the result is generated, the winner will get the winnings, and the operator will get the commission. Possibly, in the near future, regulators and tax authorities will be connected also to the smart contract in a way that the tax is automatically paid as well to the tax authorities. So it doesn't just bring benefits to the gaming operator, but it brings benefits to the user, and it brings benefits to the regulator as well. And when we speak about these things, it's very important that we also mention the regulator. Regulators have to approve this technology. In order for regulators to approve this technology, they have to see a benefit for the users and for themselves. So the fact that blockchain technology brings also benefits to them and to the users, that is very, very positive, and there's a good chance that in shorter time frames we will get regulators to actually accept blockchain technology to be used in gaming operations. Another very important benefit of blockchain is, of course, the benefit that it creates by eliminating a lot of intermediaries, which is obviously the whole point of blockchain. Eliminating intermediaries will reduce heavily the fees for operators, and that will ultimately benefit operators, of course, because they have less fees, but ultimately it will also benefit the user, because the operator would always want to make a margin of profit from its operations. If the operator can give better odds, it can give better jackpots to its players, it will do it, because it will aid it competitively when it is competing with other operators that are not using blockchain technology. So ultimately, it will also benefit the whole ecosystem. And finally, in terms of security, there's also the benefit that security it will be increased with blockchain. And again, this benefits everyone. Because once you have the information, the transaction ledger on the blockchain, it cannot be tampered with. As we know, blockchain is immutable, public blockchain is immutable, and having the transaction ledger on the blockchain will guarantee that no employee of the operator can actually tamper with the data, and no hackers can actually tamper with the data. So that is extremely important also for the operator, because they can't. We deal with a lot of gaming operators. Our law firm is one of the leading law firms on gaming in Malta, and most of the times the operator is the victim of fraud. Most of the times it's the operator, or the operator is a victim of theft from the employees. So that will safeguard the operator. It will safeguard the players as well, because ultimately their data is secure. It will also safeguard the interests of the authority, because ultimately the interest of the authority is to safeguard users. So these things are all very positive. My last point is which regulators are doing something about it. So luckily we're in Malta. The gaming regulator has always been extremely proactive and forward-looking. It's not because I spent 7 years there, but actually even the current people within the regulator are extremely knowledgeable also about the blockchain technology. So if you speak to their legal team, they are extremely knowledgeable about blockchain, and they have created this, they call it sandbox. It's not really a sandbox, it's guidelines for operators that wish to operate through blockchain technology. So, and those operators also would like to use cryptocurrencies. Two distinct things which can be done together, but these guidelines are extremely proactive. There are some limitations which we don't all agree upon. I don't agree with some limitations they have placed, especially on the amount that can be deposited via cryptocurrencies. But if you look at the holistic approach taken through this sandbox, which again I think the wording is not very correct, it is a huge step forward, and it's an example for other regulators from other jurisdictions to look at, because I believe that they have managed to get into all the details, and hopefully it will be a very successful process, and it will see a lot of gaming operators that are currently unregulated and operating from offshore jurisdictions far and far away from here, to actually come to Malta, get regulated properly, follow the rules, and operate within a regulated environment. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Joseph. Our next speaker is Michelle Singh.
Just really quick slide. So I'm going to talk about supply chain and aviation today. And earlier, you know my background, was a lawyer at PayPal for 6 years, quit my job, did my startup, did a virtual currency panel in 2012, co-founded a blockchain payments company in 2015. Participated in the Loving AI project, so we basically put consciousness in robots to help humans become more loving and self-aware. And also Luna AI, which is a hologram AI, and distributed computation, something called Compute for Cancer. Those are just my volunteer projects. So I advise a number of awesome token companies now. And I'm going to talk about using blockchain and supply chain for aircraft. And I don't know if any of you guys are in procurement. I used to help negotiate procurement deals as well for PayPal. And I understand that we need to, or we want to save costs. So air traffic has increased, more people or taking the airplane to go places, unless AR and VR change our habit. The global demand doubled every 15 years so far. I think there's a chart showing the increase of air traffic. There's no communication between production and supply chain, so there's lack of communication between production as well as suppliers and the vendors. And really, people are not meeting deadline, and when you're making an airplane or you need an airplane, you need to really know when you will get them. So I came up with an aircraft forecasting protocol to control and manage supply chain. I think this is an awesome idea because we will increase productivity, and then delivery rates will be higher. And studies have shown that if there's communication between the production and the supplier in terms of forecasting, the delivery rates will be higher in terms of meeting the deadline. 442 billion USD will be saved by 2030. Also, gas is very expensive, so a lot of times people wanted to get rid of the old airplanes so that they can get the new airplanes to save on gas costs. So they also want real-time data that really helps them. I think smart contracts allow for production planning and manufacturing sequences, which is really the frozen zone. In real estate, we call that, in construction contracts, we call them time is of the essence. I think for frozen zone, it's just we really want things to be done the way that we want them so that we can meet deadlines. I think smart contracts, because everything is defined up front, sets expectations. There's also demand for new aircrafts. You can see there how the demand is higher. And that is up to $1 trillion market value by 2030. Okay, so how? So I think the forecasting protocol could apply to boats as well as aircraft. So I spoke a little bit about on-time delivery. The number of orders has risen. So currently 10,000 aircraft takes about 7 years. So we wanted to shorten that time period. We also wanted to save costs so we can make some profit. So the protocol would have a scheduling mechanism. It would have inventory control. How many aircraft do we have now? How many do we need? What are the forecasts like? I don't know if you guys order any products. You always send forecasts out. And then we would have smart contracts that would define terms with the supplier, and also add to the bounty for first, second, and third tier suppliers. So the bounty would be in the protocol, and so if I want something done, people can bid for it. And I think, and these suppliers could basically look at the schedule. I thought that is going to be really cool. And then also there's going to be data share on the chain for actual customer demand, and then and what kind of bandwidth do the suppliers have. So when we talk about supply chain in the aviation space as well as boats and the marine space, we think about the manufacturer, vendor, supplier, airline, airports, boats and ship, port, mechanical and plant engineer. I literally advise a port company in Panama City for trade. So this is pretty cool. And so this would be the stack. It would have a forecasting protocol, tokenization layer, smart contracts. So the smart contracts would be the agreements between the party and then the blockchain at the bottom with all the data for transparency and setting expectation. And then that is the 777, the Boeing. And that's my presentation. It's pretty fast, but I think a lot of people before me had covered a lot of the items that I had discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And our last speaker is Erika.
The last speaker of the day. Okay. I just want to make 2 quick points. One on capital markets. That now everybody has transitioned to security tokens from utility tokens, but everybody is bespoke security tokens. For example, if you have an asset like a diamond, you have a diamond-backed token, or you have a pond or a real estate home and stuff, and you have a real estate-backed token. But those are not traditional securities. Traditional securities are those that are created and sold on Wall Street. And till now, nobody in the crypto industry has come up with that kind of infrastructure, and that is a real big opportunity, because that market, securities market, is anywhere from $100 trillion upwards. And a smart contract allows you to replicate any financial instrument in code. For example, whether it is a bond or a mortgage or equity, anything is just a combination of inflows and outflows of cash flow, and these can be coded into a smart contract. So that means any financial instrument that is tradable on Wall Street can also be replicated in a smart contract. So that means crypto industry has huge potential to erode into the market share of players that are playing in Wall Street, like broker-dealers, like exchanges, like custodians, and so on. So that's my insight on the capital markets. And the second insight, it's going to be really brief, is on artificial intelligence, which is one thing we don't know is that artificial intelligence is only as good as the data that feeds it, and whoever possesses this data, which is huge reams of data, is in control of these algorithms and artificial intelligence. For example, let's say Amazon has a lot of data on us, Facebook has a lot of data on us. And if Facebook poisons this data deliberately, then anyone who is taking this data feed and using it for guiding the behavior of algorithms is misguided, because that data is poisoned. It's not real data. So for example, when the presidential elections happened, Facebook had a huge campaign going on where some customers or some citizens were targeted, they were classified for their political beliefs and so on, and they were specifically targeted as to their influenceability or impressionability, right? So it is possible that anyone can meddle with your data. Either they can introduce wrong data and be responsible for data poisoning, or they can just hack the data, they can steal your data and stuff. And the first thing, the dangerous thing about this is there is plausible deniability. So if somebody introduced some erroneous data deliberately, then there is no way you can go back and say that so-and-so was responsible for this data, because you trust data, right? For example, in America, most of the prisoners or those who are convicted or killed by police, these are black people, right? So this is one form of data. But if you introduce this kind of data into everything, then it may lead, for example, for black people to be more and more convicted, because data proves that these people are more prone to doing crimes. So if you introduce these kind of biased and prejudiced data, then you can really mess around with the world, artificial intelligence systems and so on. So one solution to this, there is only one solution to this, and that is to decentralize data rather than depend on centralized repositories of data. Already we have too many big players who are centralized repositories of data. So instead of that, if you can collect data from small pockets, from individuals for example, where we are each sending data and there is a decentralized system which is keeping control of this data, then you can be sure of the integrity of this data and you can be sure that this is the real data. So that's where blockchain plus artificial intelligence is going to be a big game changer, because futuristic technologies can be built on this. Especially these days, you have a lot of companies which are specializing on minutest aspects. Like for example, one company is specializing on using artificial intelligence to catch fish. Another company is specializing in advising special food choices of customers based on artificial intelligence. So AI applications are so numerous, and because it can be all pervasive, we need to have data integrity and blockchain and decentralized data repositories.